My introduction to anime was from fan subs downloaded through LimeWire and burned onto a DVD. My family didn't have internet, so it was rare when my sister and I got our hands on one of these, so when a little show called Toonami came into existence, it was a godsend for us, introducing things like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Tenchi Muyo. Then, there was the premiere of Adult Swim and Cowboy Bebop. At the time, I was blown away by this show, believing it set a standard that all anime should follow. That was 20 plus years ago. Can I rightfully claim the same thing after having consumed so many years worth of anime since then? Well, boys and girls, come sit down on my lap and let Uncle Anime tell you exactly how this anime holds up. Nostalgia is a powerful emotion. I truly believe no words can describe how I felt hearing the opening to this anime. I haven't heard this song since I was a kid, and I couldn't fight the almost childlike glee I felt just from experiencing it again. It's pretty rare for me nowadays to even watch the opening for most anime. I just skip them and move on, with a few notable exceptions. So maybe this is nostalgia talking, but this opening is still a 10 out of 10 in my book. But putting that aside, when I first started my rewatch, I was fully intending to experience this anime as I do with all since growing up. Subs, not dubs. However, the majority of anime I watched as a kid was strictly dubbed. This is where I believe nostalgia can hit the hardest. I literally was unable to watch the sub version. Everything was familiar but also off. So I found myself swapping over to the dub version, and it was relieving in a way to hear Spike's American dub again. An almost Solid Snake type tone that felt right for the character when compared to the original. This was the case with all the main cast. Hearing their voices was like seeing an old friend. Then there's the art style. I have to admit, there's something I adore about older animations. They hold a certain personality that can't be replicated, but I do commend those who have tried, like Megalobox. Maybe it's just something from the era I was born in where Disney actually cared and 2D was beautiful. Not to say that 3D can't be beautiful, but that topic can be left for another video. Returning to the anime, this show still excels in a lot of areas, with the combat being the most well animated, though there are various pan and zoom scenes and more than a few shots where the action is conveniently out of frame. However, I'm willing to forgive it because of scenes like this. Keep in mind, this was made in 1998. There are plenty of anime today who can't even be bothered to half-ass their work with better tools. Now, it sounds like I'm going to do nothing but sing this anime praise. However, I am a man, and have grown since I was a kid. I like grown-up things like slice of life, romantic comedies, and the toughest thing in anime, character development. So how well does Cowboy Bebop do with conveying its story? Unfortunately, not too well. I believe the word disjointed fits well here. Unlike most anime where episodes all connect to create a story, Cowboy Bebop goes with an almost American cartoon hybrid approach. Each episode's story is self-contained, with only small things revolving around the main characters, sometimes used later on. I could point to so many episodes that were highly emotional, all for it to end with little to no reaction or mention from the main characters. I believe it was wasted potential, and I began to notice that it tends to follow a formula. Character meets someone connected to baddie, they have sad story, tragedy happens, rinse and repeat. So the example I'm about to give is sadly very copy-paste for a lot of episodes with the same setup. With that said, let's focus on the first episode. We meet a woman who is tagging along with the bad guy. There's a brief interaction between her and Spike. They take this short moment to try and build a sorrowful character who wishes for a better life. A good woman put into a bad situation. We get some action scenes before it ends with her dying in front of Spike. To my kid brain, this was emotional, but to someone who is now dead inside, I found myself with only one thought. Who cares? Any emotional connection I've established with this character is fleeting, and whether her dying or going to jail overall would have left the same impact. There just wasn't enough time to build her up for the audience to properly experience her tragic end, or leave an impact on the main character. There's so much that's left unsaid. Why was she so dedicated to the bad guy? What were her circumstances that led to them not only getting together, but dealing drugs? Clearly she loved him, as she felt killing him was the only way to spare him of his suffering, but it's just too vague to overall care, and a shame because this is one of many cases the show has where this happens. Now I get it, adding so much story to characters that are going to die anyway is a waste, but I then question why even do it in the first place? If it's for the sake of developing the main cast, then it should be done right. If not, then maybe just focus on the basic formula of bad guy and fight scenes, a type of padding used before then dedicating time to the crucial plot points. But that's all filler content, right? What about the actual plot points? Those are pretty epic. Once again, I think I appreciated them more as a kid than now. One such case is when Spike first meets Vicious. The episodes leading up give no clues as to this happening, which is fine, but after we get a glimpse into Spike's background, the following episodes just return to the standard formula. Again, disjointed fits really well here. However, I believe this largely revolves around the other shows of its time, which were Outlaw Star and Trigun. What I last recall is that they had the same disjointed formula, but I'll have to rewatch them too to confirm that. Now, does that mean that it's all doom and gloom? That there's nothing redeemable about the story? Well, let's take a step back and try to look at the entire show in the terms of story arcs, focusing around the main cast while ignoring all the filler stuff. How do those stories hold up? Let's start with the character that literally plays no part in the entire show, Ed. With the exception of her introduction, a random bounty, and her leaving episode, Ed is just a background character, doing weird stuff without much thought put into it. Overall, she gives off the vibe of a lonely kid who just wants friends, which is a shame because this concept could have been explored better, but instead she just plays this minimalist role, not really adding any substance to the story before departing from the Bebop. It's actually kind of funny in a way how the episode is played off as if it's a sad affair, but in actuality they never even established any connection, so in hindsight it's a hollow sorrow. Second is Jet. Not much to say here, we have a very basic backstory for him. He was a former cop, partner sold him out and shot his arm off? Yeah, that part I still don't get, but either way, there's no depth worth exploring for him. Which is fine, because not all characters need some complex background. If anything, it helps cement him as what he's portrayed as in the show. A rock. Something stable when compared to everyone else. Now let's focus on Faye. I think there's a lot of injustice with this character. She comes out of the blue with a bad attitude and is a character you can't help but hate due to how selfish she is. That's when we get a glimpse into her background, which once again holds the same formula of sad comedy mix, which is really inappropriate for storytelling because comedy devalues anything serious happening, with only a few notable exceptions, but those are incredibly difficult to write, such as war buddies telling jokes to escape the horrors of war. I believe though no greater injustice done to this character can ever compare to the videotape episode. It truly was the most moving shot with a recording of a younger Faye cheering her older self on. Then, it just ends. Like all episodes before, no mention of it from Faye or the crew. This was tragic. All that build up, and it's like everyone gets hit with amnesia immediately after. It was only near the end that Faye would even revisit the tape and try to follow up on where it was recorded, but find that nothing was left for her. Last but not least is Spike. Over the entire series, we only get a surface level peek in Spike's personality. He's portrayed as laid back but a bit of a loose cannon. Due to the nature of the show, he was constantly put into scenarios where he would meet people, sometimes with light comedy, sometimes not, but all of them would end in some kind of tragedy, mostly revolving around death. Even with his various run-ins with Vicious, he shows some emotions, but none of it ever sticks. It's all fleeting and forgotten about as soon as the episode ends. However, in the episodes dedicated to him, we do get to learn indirectly about his past, such as his work with the Syndicate, a woman named Julia, and of course his hate for Vicious. This will all culminate in the final two episodes: Julia's death, Spike's fight with Vicious, and of course the tragic end. Again, perhaps it's just a product of its time, but a part of me really does wonder how much more justice could have been done if a lot of the episodes were extended for character development, because many episodes came off as filler, which is a shame. It got so bad for me that I even tried to come up with various theories as to why the show is the way it is. While I believe this was just me getting high on copium, one theory I had was pretty neat. I thought maybe the disjointed style was due to Spike actually experiencing his life flashing before his eyes before dying, which would explain a lot, but then there are other characters' perspectives, so that theory doesn't hold up. After having taken this all in for a few days as I wrote this script, I came to a conclusion myself. Cowboy Bebop isn't a masterpiece of storytelling. It's flawed and pales in comparison to various anime that I would now claim to be my top 10. However, does that mean it no longer has a place in the anime world? No. Cowboy Bebop is still a great show. Maybe even more so for those who aren't familiar with anime, as it does have a formula that is very reminiscent to American cartoons while also sprinkling in what I believe to be the spirit of what anime strive for. So while it may not appeal to an anime veteran, I think for people who are just starting out, it still holds up well. I don't regret having watched it as a kid, nor did I regret rewatching it. While Cowboy Bebop moves down from my top 5, it's still easily in my top 10, and will hold a special, nostalgic place in my heart. So, with that said, I'll see you later, Space Cowboy.